like the feel-good edition of Wish You a Merry Christmas, right? Hey guys, happy holidays. We're doing Ugly Sweater Day here at work. Actually, the holiday party's today at about 12:30, and there's an ugly sweater contest, and I'm hoping to win. You get a small prize if you win. There's lots of other ugly sweaters around the office today. We're enjoying it. We're in the holiday spirit. I hope you are too at wherever you happen to be watching from today. If you're here in DC, if you're not, here's my goal for today. We're going to focus on the holiday travel coming up. Obviously, it's a busy travel weekend with folks heading out of town, heading home for the holidays. So we're going to check on basically the entire country, and I'll let you know where you're going to have your travel trouble spots on each kind of individual day. We'll do today, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and then we'll look ahead to Christmas as well and see if there's any hope for any flakes flying here at all as we head into Christmas Day. So, all right, happy holidays, and let's get rolling. Let's start you off with a how about a live look outside here locally, because clouds have moved in steadily and we're dealing with a decent amount of cloud cover. Clouds are going to struggle to break today. They may do it late afternoon, but I'm not too hopeful for too much sun, and it's not going to have any effect on temperatures here. You're generally looking at or what you see outside, you're kind of feeling what you're going to get as we head through the course of the day today. I'm going to go full screen with graphics today because I feel like sometimes my little face, maybe I'll pop in from time to time and talk about something, but generally speaking, I feel like my face gets in the way a little bit. So I'll see you when I need to. Let's do, again, travel forecast if you happen to be heading out today. This was the earlier run of the GFS. I am waiting on the new one. In fact, let me check in on it right now because it's coming in. It's out to 120 hours, which is 5 days. So we can kind of hang with this one because it's the latest, and I like rolling with the latest. I haven't looked at it yet because it is coming in live. But we'll kind of go through it together because that should at least get us out through the weekend for the travel weather. Areas of concern today, obviously, are if you're traveling south of town, down to the Carolinas, you're going to hit some rain, not expecting any snow. The only place that could have potentially mixed would have been the mountains of West Virginia. There's a little bit of cool air at the upper levels there, but it looks like the bulk of the precip's going to stay to their south, so I'm less concerned with that today than I was a few days ago. You have interior snows. I mean, again, not a lot of people live out there. Some do. Don't get me wrong. If you're from these parts up here to the north and west, they're seeing seasonal snow showers and several inches of snow is expected up there with Canadian cold air mass kind of coming down. Watch that high as we roll through, and you'll see it come down, causing some trouble. So that's really it for today. The bigger concerns come not so much tomorrow. You'll have the leading edge of, and this is tomorrow afternoon, so Thursday afternoon and early evening, you're starting to get some snow showers, just kind of seasonal stuff as the front edge of the Arctic air mass meets a little bit of moisture that's wrapping around up from the south. So some snow showers, maybe an inch or two out there, but it doesn't look like anything extreme. And if you're traveling up and down the East Coast, high pressures up here generally in control, and that's going to keep us dry. So tomorrow's a good travel day, just about nationwide. With again, if you're going to Iowa, Nebraska, portions of Wisconsin, maybe up towards Green Bay, you can get a couple of snow showers. Is it anything that's going to cause significant delays for flights or anything like that? I don't think so. Not during your day on Thursday. Friday has a little bit more potential. Basically, what you're going to start to do is you're going to start to organize a storm system up here, and that's going to start to pull in a little bit more energy. Let's keep running forward. So this is your Friday morning. That storm's starting to get its act together. One area of concern I do have is as that storm does get its act together, it's actually a little farther north than what I just showed. Its center of low pressure's getting its act together there. You're running the cold front, which is blue, so I'll change that. Cold front's kind of running back through here, and then you're running a warm front up into here, and it's that leading edge of the warm front that goes across the northeast that is a concern. Let's zoom in on the northeast because this is, I think, going to be a problem if you're traveling north and west of town, especially tomorrow early in the day. If you're traveling up tomorrow morning, if you plan to get up and go and you're traveling north of here, central to northern PA has to watch out for a little bit of a mixing ice event. You got warm air coming up from the south and from the west with that warm front, which again is kind of right in through there early tomorrow morning. You're going to have warm air overriding cold air. There's a big strong area, high pressure, sitting up here that's pushing the cold air down while you have low pressure in the warm front moving through with warm air coming up. So your travel trouble spots tomorrow that I'd be concerned about in the morning is going to be right in through here with an ice event. Yes, you're going to be getting light snow through central New York, but I'm primarily concerned with ice because that's the big trouble. That causes bigger trouble is ice. And you will have below freezing temperatures in the morning. The ground's going to be cold up in that direction on Friday morning before warmer air eventually wins out as the days go on. And you will eventually transition the rain. But if you plan on traveling up through northern portions of Pennsylvania, I am not talking Philly. I am not talking New York City. So if you're staying along I-95 here, you are going to be just fine throughout the daytime hours on your Friday. If you're going up rural PA towards upstate New York, that's where you're going to run into your travel problems tomorrow on Friday. If you're flying into Buffalo, maybe tomorrow afternoon, again, it's just warm frontal snow showers, which don't tend to put down a lot too much, but you could pick up several inches of snow as the day kind of rolls on. That's now Friday evening. You may snow some in Boston, but you see New York's already kind of out of it. And I don't see that there's mixing just off to their north, but I don't see the mix getting into New York City. I think it's going to stay to their north across the interior. It's interior New York, interior New England. You're going to Vermont, you're going to New Hampshire, you're going southern Maine. That's where you have to watch out for several inches of snow to be falling throughout the daytime hours tomorrow. Because again, see that right there? That's a 1034 high pressure, which you don't really need to know about what that means. Just know it's a strong area high pressure, and it's going to fight it. You got warm air coming in, but warm air is not in charge. Cold air is in charge. And high pressure is really going to try and fight you there and keep the cold kind of in place across New England. So as that moisture hits it, again, as warm air comes up, let's do it. So, you have your warm air and you have your cold air. As warm air comes up, it hits the cold air. Warm air weighs a lot less than cold air. Cold, dry air is heavy. So the warm, moist air is forced to rise. You get your whatever coming down. It depends on the depth of the cold layer. If it's a shallow cold layer, you'll get ice. If it's a moderate cold layer, you'll get sleet. And if it's a deep cold layer, you'll get your snowfall. So that's kind of the battle we have going on. And I'll say this, models don't handle this well. So if that rain-snow line is actually pushed a little farther south still towards PA tomorrow afternoon, wouldn't shock me, just because a 1034 high is a pretty healthy high for this time of year. So watch that if you're traveling north tomorrow and you have travel plans again in the Northeast. Tomorrow's the day to not tomorrow, on Friday. That's the day to watch out for that. Let's zoom back out. We'll take the national picture again. Anywhere else, it's a rain and thunderstorm kind of concern down through Arkansas, portions of Texas, Tennessee, southern Kentucky. That shouldn't be a huge deal, but if you get some heavy rain, you can still do some airport delays. So do be aware of that. Other than that, it's pretty quiet. Maybe Seattle, Portland's dealing with some clouds, some fog, some showers, interior snow showers in the mountains of the Northwest. But again, I think your biggest concerns for travel on Friday are going to be those areas north of here. No threat here locally, DC, Baltimore, Philly, but north interior regions of the New England area, interior New York. That's where you could run into some travel problems, so be aware of that. And then, of course, I mentioned before, southeast, maybe Dallas gets some showers. Shouldn't be, again, anything of major concern. But if I'm picking areas, the heavy rain could cause a delay here and there. Heading into your day on Saturday morning, we start pulling in more moisture as yet a secondary low starts to develop down to the south. So you're now influxing warmth and you're influxing moisture. We're actually going to be in the 60s here as we head through your day on Saturday. It's going to be pretty mild. Your delays down here locally would mostly be due to rain versus snow. And if we're getting any snow, it's up towards the Maine area in the morning. But watch kind of warm air win out as we continue to run through the day here. And then the question is, how fast does the cold air move in on the backside? So you'll start pulling cold air down behind these storms. So you could do rain over the snow, upstate New York, interior portions of Pennsylvania as we get towards Saturday night. But here, DC, Philly, New York, your majors on the East Coast down through Atlanta are all just going to be showery through the day, just because there's not enough cold air around. Your area high pressure is way up here. You got a area of it looks like an area of high pressure. No, it's not really low pressure, but you got an area of lower pressure there. But generally, my point is you don't have a strong cold air supply coming far enough east to hit these regions. That changes a little bit on Sunday, but Sunday we have less moisture What that front is going to do is it's going to stall. So you'll have a front come through, it'll stall. We talked about this yesterday. Front coming through with and stalls just off our coastline. You actually have a high. It's not planing it there, but you have a nice big healthy high down here, which is going to try and bring some cold air eastward. It's a little far away. And then you'll have a secondary high trying to develop up in this region, trying to force cold air down to the south. Both things to watch as we head into our day on Monday, because if we get an upper level piece of energy swinging down along this frontal boundary, we could kick up a storm that would ride the front, and maybe if we're super lucky, we could do a squeeze out a snowflake. I'm not terribly confident in it. Is this the 12? This is the 12. So let's see what the 12 did. Yeah, so basically what the 12 does is blows out the pattern. You're bringing that 1034 high a little bit too far east. You're really getting the cold in here throughout the day on Sunday into Monday. Maybe you're squeezing out. There is some blue down there, so maybe you're squeezing out a flurry or two. But generally speaking, you're going to have a hard time. We'll watch. It all depends on where this front is, and I really don't like how weather models are handling the frontal situation right now. I think it's going to be a difficult task. We get second half of Monday does look like it clears out here, and then as we head into Tuesday, we get sunshine back, but we're cold, and we're kind of settling into a cold pattern as we head into next week. So travel problems elsewhere, Christmas Eve, nothing too bad. I mean, let's go back to Christmas Eve, which is Sunday here. Again, it's a storm exiting the coast. It'd be interior northeast problems. Other than that, it's just scattered snow showers up through the northwest and, Pacific Northwest, maybe doing some rain once again in Seattle and Portland, more so Seattle than Portland. But generally speaking, Christmas Eve averaged across the country looks more quiet than not. We get out beyond there, things get a little bit more interesting. We'll touch on those when I hit Friday, because there are things in the future of the pattern that I need more time to watch. Although I'll mention kind of a risk here in just a second. Let's talk about Christmas Day, because we were watching it yesterday as to whether or not we could squeeze out any snow here. Going upper level energy now here, if you're wondering exactly what we're looking at. So, not the best setup for snow in my opinion here. Let's rewind things back. Let's send things out forward a little bit here. Rewind back, take it forward. All right, so the good thing is you do have energy here. You're bringing in an upper level trough, swinging in across the Midwest. Problem I have with it is you're by the time it gets to St. Louis, you're already kind of swinging from neutral to positive. And once you turn positive, you tend to bring whatever's there in. And right now, we don't have a whole lot of energy out in this region to kick up a storm. Anything that would be out there, remember, your front's kind of out there. So if your front's there and you kick up a storm along it, it's just going to get tossed out, because the flow, or what the upper level winds are doing, is just kicking out instead of being close enough to this guy to start sucking it in. There is the potential, and I've seen on several weather blogs, that as this thing starts to gather energy, I just lost it, let me get out to it again, right there, that as it tilts here, there's a little bit of energy leaving. So there's concern that you could kick up a storm that might be an issue for the interior heading into Christmas Day for like cities like Pittsburgh, because your upward motion is all in this region. So Pittsburgh, interior, New York, the upper level pattern would argue for that. What it doesn't argue for, and what I still don't like here, is getting any snow here into DC. There's an outside chance, but I think it's a low chance. You'd need this to be deeper. You'd need that energy to be a little bit farther south. You'd need it to be a little bit farther east. Then we'd be cooking with gas a little bit. But you're going to have trouble getting any snow into DC, I think, with that upper level pattern. Now the European, that was the European. Now the GFS shows kind of a similar thing. It's sort of an agreement there. It's got a little bit more energy off the coast, but it is farther east, so it's keeping the storm offshore as of this morning. And let me switch runs here and see what the new 12Z is doing here. We'll see what we got. So again, I haven't looked at this yet. So, I guess maybe it's not really better. So let's make sure. So these are the same time difference between the European GFS, European GFS, European GFS. Again, it's not the best trough in the world. Upper level features are a little different. GFS is a little weaker, it looks like. It looks like Europeans, let's see, 948. It's all subtle details. The GFS looks like it's a little farther south and west with this piece. Your energy is kind of glopped up there. You do have something there that might be worth a watch. But it's sort of lined up almost with the trough axis, and it's already positive or negative at that point. And once this thing goes negative, what you see is kind of what you get. And again, your upward motion field is off there to the north and to the east of town, or north and to the west of town. So to me, that doesn't argue for a storm here as much as it does for the north and west. And the European, if I switch back, had this weekend. Let's go to this. This is the European kind of side of things, and it's got the rain that's this weekend. There's Saturday into Sunday morning, some showers. Cold air starts to move in locally, and the European does have, again in that area there, so frontal boundary is kind of right here. That energy starts swinging through, and as we go forward, kind of in time here, if I can get my mouse clicks right. If we go forward in time here, it is trying to see how so European is popping a storm here, kind of where that upward motion field is, and it is giving some snows into the interior portions here. Nothing major, but it is giving it. It's trying to do a low off the coastline there too, but that's having cold air supply problems. So it's showing two lows essentially. It's got a low here, it's got a low here. I think one of them is going to end up, this is the model kind of debating itself in my opinion, and I think one of them is going to win out, and I think if there's anyone that wins out, it might be that one off to the north and to the west, where the upward motion's a little better in the model. But compare this to, say, the GFS, which I don't believe shows much of anything on Christmas Day here. So here's the GFS kind of side of things. So just to show you the difference, let's go to the 7 a.m. on Monday morning. So GFS doesn't have much. Frontal boundaries out here now. There's some moisture along it, but look at the difference between the two. See, the European's got a storm up here, and that's actually pretty good snows for interior New England, but the GFS does not. Same model for the same time for the same, different models for the same time for the same day. Let's see if I can line it up so you can kind of clearly see. See, European GFS, European GFS, European GFS, and it all has to do with how they're handling the upper level energy as it swings around the corner there. Same time, let's go 12Z Monday on the upper levels. 12Z Monday, same deal. I gotta change variables here. 12Z Monday. European GFS, European GFS, European. European's got a nice little ball of energy there. That's why it's able to kick up the storm offshore there. So here's what I think's going on now that I'm kind of looking at this a little deeper. It looks to me like what the European's doing is right during the overnight hours of Christmas Eve as Santa's out doing his thing, along that energy in the leading edge as the trough starts going from neutral to negative, it kicks up a storm here which rides up, and then what it looks like it's trying to do is that as that energy builds, because watch as we slide forward a little bit, watch that energy right there kind of build to the coastline. That's 7 a.m. on Christmas Day. Now the upward motion field's in here, and what you're basically doing is you have that low that comes up, and then it looks like it wants to transfer and move, which happens a lot because we got the mountains there, so you get a lot of low pressure systems transferring like that. We'll watch it. That's kind of all I can say. Again, nothing at this point in time. It is 11:26 a.m. on the Wednesday before Christmas. We have time to go. I don't think the models are seeing the whole picture yet. But there are ways it could snow here on Christmas Day, but I think it's in the minority as opposed to the majority at this point in the models. I'm be more concerned with those areas to the north of town. I think they might have a little bit better of a shot. I mean, like PA, New York, New England might have a better shot at seeing a white Christmas than we do here. Still lots of details. I don't like the upper level. I'm an upper level pattern guy, and there's still as minor as those differences look, they're still not getting the details. The small details are going to make all the difference with these kind of storms, and I don't think the models are quite seeing it yet. All right, let's see. Let's take me full. Let's take me there. Hi guys, double box. All right, that's all I got for Christmas travel. Again, I would watch Friday. If you're a Friday traveler and you're getting up early and you plan on hitting the road early, watch north of, say, central PA up through New York. You could do a little bit of ice and then snow up there. I think that's the biggest travel problems in the country on that day. And then looks like it was late Friday night up towards Chicago, Detroit. You could do a little bit of snow around there. Let's see if I can flash here. Let's see, would be Friday morning, kind of up towards Chicago, Detroit, and then it kind of pushes over to our neck of the woods through the morning hours, or not our neck of the woods, DC, north of here, PA, New York, throughout kind of the daytime hours of Friday there. So that's kind of your travel trouble spots. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal here locally, and then rain starts to kick up Saturday down south and west of town. So we'll watch that as well. All right, that's all I have for today. Let me go through. If you're here at DC local, you're wondering what our forecast looks like through at least Christmas Day and beyond. It looks like this. There you go. So temperature's not moving much today under the cloud cover, but tomorrow sun shines back. Winter starts officially 11:29 a.m. And then we warm up as we head into winter. So tomorrow's the coldest day of the next 5. Friday 50s are back. Saturday 60s are back briefly, but it's not nice 60s. It's cloudy, miserable, rainy 60s. Sunday spotty showers, lots of clouds, temperatures starting to fall, and then they continue to kind of fall all the way through Christmas Day. That 43 is like an early high, and then temperatures keep falling all the way through the day. And then as we get into next week, we really start to cool things down. Beyond Christmas Day, looks very cold. All right, that's all. That's all I got here today. I'm going to crank up the Christmas music once again. Let everybody rock out to that. And then here locally, Molly's going to be back. She's going to have all your news headlines coming up in just a few minutes. See you guys.
All right, hey guys, it is Christmas in the newsroom here at Fox 5 DC in our digital newsroom. We're here with Tam Lee, our amazing beauty and fashion expert. Auntie, you know him from upstairs. We're hanging out. It is ugly sweater Christmas Day, and I borrowed this from a friend. Isn't this cute? It's very millennial with the avocado.
Nobody gave me the news flash.
Hey, but you got it already.
Because my sweater's not ugly.
It's not ugly. She's in a full-fledged outfit because she was just on our morning show, so we snagged her to come down. And then Tia, you got the red and gray going on.
Yeah, I got
you guys look Christmassy together. I like it.
Red, green, you know.
So we're going to have sort of a midday. We're so excited. Holiday party upstairs where at least a bunch of us can go. So we'll take a little halfway kind of stall. We'll be back on the show. But if you are joining us, welcome and happy almost there to Christmas. I guess what, 5 days to go?
5 more days. 5 more days.
We're getting there.
Yeah. I mean, like it just like I don't know where the time just it's like after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, just like I don't know.
I will say too, and it's weird, right? Because the weather isn't so Christmassy that we're not really into it here. But like, I mean, we're getting there. And I think winter solstice is technically tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
Mike was probably just on talking about weather, so we probably mentioned it. I know people get all into that. Some people have winter solstice parties. They celebrate in different ways.
Yeah.
Tam, you're here to talk about this morning. You had some great ideas because if you're not ready, right?
Yeah.
For Christmas?
Some people think that Christmas shopping is just so stressful. Like I was in Nordstrom last night getting some of my last minute things.
Yeah.
And this husband, he was looking so distraught, and I was like, "Do you need help? You need help?" He's like, "This is like major." He was like, "I hate this time of the year because they feel like husbands feel like it's so hard, but it's not hard. It's just like you got to find that right person who will go shop for you, or you just got to know exactly what to get."
So what is the best sort of first advice about going into this week? Crazy, right? 5 more days to go.
Yeah. You know what? I tell a lot of people, online shopping is the best for me, though. I feel like Amazon has totally changed the entire retail game.
Oh my gosh,
retail game. Like, I remember I bought something last Saturday night. I promise you guys, it was like 11 o'clock at night. And it was at my doorstep Sunday evening. And I'm sitting here like...
Isn't it crazy now?
So they deliver Sundays now? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what's the point of going to the mall now? It's like you can lay in your bed and shop and you can get it on a Sunday. Like, UPS trucks come through on Sundays now? Well, okay, where are we living?
I know, isn't that crazy? You guys know this too as digital viewers. You probably are very, very savvy. You probably use Amazon a lot. We know it's a game changer. We know it's changing the world. Totally there's even stories out there now we're talking about in our editorial meetings about covering for people snagging these Amazon boxes and stealing packages off people's doors and then ditching these Amazon boxes because, like I said, Amazon is so prevalent. People are using them. They're dropped off all the time.
Yeah.
So there's kind of an interesting side to that as well.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But every store is trying to compete with Amazon right now, which is a win-win situation for consumers because everything's free shipping. So you shouldn't have to pay for shipping for anything nowadays.
Agree. Always look for those, either the way to not pay for it or the deals with the coupon codes.
Yeah, the coupon codes. Oh my goodness. I think it's retailmenot.com.
Yeah,
I go in there a lot.
You like that too? For stuff?
I mean, no, this was really funny. The other morning, Uggs had a coupon code on there that was 60% off. And I'm like, 60% off? Wait a minute, hold on. And it said like 85 people used this code and they shut it down like really quick. But all of those coupon codes, they're out there. And so you guys make sure that whatever you're buying, go to those sites and just put the store name in.
Yeah.
You might as well take advantage of some bargains because everything's
right. And RetailMeNot is a good reputable one, right? Because I know it's been around forever. I would kind of search and do deep searches for it way back in the day before people kind of really did a ton of online shopping, when we were really young, but it's still a big one. It's still the way to go.
It's still the way to go. Like I have that app on my phone. I don't
You
play
do.
around. Yeah.
You have the app. I actually don't use the app, but I use it online.
You're gonna buy the item anyway. Yeah. So why not save?
Yeah.
So you can buy more stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you're familiar with that. You've used it for some gaming and stuff?
I use it all the time. I just do a quick Google search right before while I keep the tab open. If I'm buying something, I keep the tab open and then I'll Google search RetailMeNot coupon code and just apply it.
See, y'all just heard it from him because my husband, he seems to think most guys will think that that's just too tedious, but you guys heard, guys want to save money too.
Definitely, and that's for everything.
Coupons, so it's cool.
Everything.
It's cool to get coupons. Right, it's cool.
All right, so online shopping is the way, and then any specific tips, I guess, going into these last 5 days, and I also want to hear about what you showcased this morning.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm a big fan of Brookstone. You guys know Brookstone.
They
have great gifts. Especially for people who you don't know sizes. You don't want to get too personable. You want things that are just that are win-win, because you want to try to stay away from gifts that they're going to want to re-gift. You don't want to get gifts that like that. So you go in there, and of course they have all the hot items in the front. I think one of the things were really hot this season was the earphones with the you don't have to put them behind your ear, you just put them inside your ear. That was pretty hot. I feel like I'm gonna lose those. Because it's just like a little plug. It looks like an airplane plug. You just put in your ear.
I want to see that. As a tech guy, what do you think about those?
I think those are awesome, especially with the ones that have the microphone feature. The mic will still grab your voice clearly from where the earpiece is from both ears, and they're Bluetooth. You can recharge your batteries, so they'll never really die. I think those are a great gift idea.
I saw that like in every store. Everybody, that was like the hottest gift that guys wanted, especially if you're used to wearing earphones.
Yeah.
Another one, my favorite from this morning segment was Holly was going crazy about it. Was the tracker. So there are these little small little circle trackers because I lose my phone like 50 million times a day. And my daughter just recently lost her laptop. She found it, but she lost it in the house somewhere. So you put these little small circles in the back of whatever. You can have it on your keychain if you lose your keys all the time. And then you download the app to your phone and your computer.
So that if it's on your phone, you track it on your computer,
whatever
vice versa.
You know, whether it's the remote control. You know, your house. I don't care, whatever you lose, you can track it.
Interesting.
And so it's kind of scary. So Holly kept saying, "Wait, does this track people? Let me track my husband."
That's cute.
I was
you
like,
had to make that comment. What'd you say?
I know.
We
were dying laughing. I said, "Yeah, my sister would totally want this for my niece." You know, those teenagers when they telling you they going somewhere, you're like, "Oh, what do you want? Let me slip this in your purse or something."
Well, my question, that's actually a valid question, right? Where, how far does it go? And then, also, how much are they? Are they pricey?
It was $79 for 4.
Okay.
You got 4 in a pack, and
$79.
Yeah, it was $79. And it didn't say it had any range because just think it's no different than like Find My Phone. You know, the feature that's built in.
Do you think those are worth it? So do you think you could stick out a person? That would be wild.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it.
I want someone to do that experiment.
Oh,
I don't know if it's
be like, honey, I thought you said you was going to a football game. Where are you? Like,
honestly, that's a funny one.
I know, it's funny. But the guy said in Brookstone, I bought the last one, and he said he can't keep them in. He said because people are always,
buy the last one. People want them.
People are always losing their cell phones or whatever it is. And if you try to locate your cell phone, if you got it on vibrate, when they're like, "Oh, call my phone, let me find it." You can't find it if it's on vibrate. So that thing will always show you where your phone
interesting. You'd have to go to your laptop to then use it.
Yeah, you have to go to your laptop. Yeah, so you want to put it on like all devices. So
it's funny that you said that because I actually received one of those tracking devices as a Secret Santa gift from somebody here. So
last year or this year?
This year, like a couple days ago. It's called the Tile app. So basically,
so similar.
Yeah, it's very similar. So it's Bluetooth connected. You can put it on your keychain. You can put it on a laptop, wallet, whatever things that you might lose. And so the cool feature about this is it kind of works like the Waze app. So if you do lose your keys and somebody else who has the same app is around it, they'll see that this item is here. It's also associated with the Tile app.
Oh,
so if you're missing this item and somebody's near it, then they can find it for you and retrieve and contact you.
That's cool.
And it also works both ways too. Like if you lose your phone and you hold the button, then your phone will ring.
Wow.
So like it's like really sophisticated.
Hey, 2018, you won't be able to get away with anything.
I'm telling you.
Everybody's trackable. Okay? Everybody's trackable.
And everything comes with the receipts.
I wonder what to think about that. All right, I'm definitely going to look that up because I'm curious. What else was big on your list? I missed the whole thing.
Yeah, well, perfumes, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I was telling people that I always wait until Christmas. I don't shop for perfumes during the year because I know that people are going to give me perfumes. So I wait till the end of the year to get, nice perfumes. But I love that Nordstrom always, every year, they collaborate with high-end designers and they do an exclusive perfume that is only sold for them. And so Valentino has one and Hermes has one. It's not too expensive, maybe like $90, something like that.
And
but
it's a collab with Nordstrom.
So great. Like, it really does. So, I have that on my list. Everybody knows in my family, I want that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, okay, Uggs. Everybody knows.
I saw the boots up there.
Yeah,
big
Uggs
brand.
Yeah,
people talk
the shaggy
about them.
ones. Yeah, those came back in. Candles, all that stuff, all the major. All the regular stuff. That's still in, but those were some of the hot items. Oh, and then I had these headphones. That it was the first time I saw this. It was in Brookstone as well. They cut down. My husband goes to bed at 8:00. And
hey, power to that.
I go to sleep at 2 in the morning. And
oh,
he's always
you're
like,
night
honey,
owl.
the TV. So now these headphones, they're Bluetooth, and they hook up to your TV, so you can now watch TV in bed without the other person bothering the other person.
Smart. So you can be in the same bed as your significant other, do your thing.
I had that on the table today, too. That was from Brookstone, and I'm keeping that for myself. Because we always argue about that. He's like, honey, I got to get up in the morning. And I'm like,
love
okay,
it.
but I'm watching this movie, okay?
Brookstone is innovative and cool. It's the way to go.
You can always count, especially last-minute gifts, you can always go in there and find something for somebody.
Totally last minute. I love that. So if you are just joining us, which Kellex, I see that you just came on. Thank you for saying that you love our outfits. Quick note to anybody that's on there, we do have an ugly sweater party coming up, so I'm throwing on my Avo Merry Christmas, and I'm getting kind of hot in this, so I might end up taking it off for now. But then we have Tam Lee, who's our beauty and fashion aficionado. She was on the morning show this morning, kind of talking about last minute gifts and leading up to Christmas. And then you guys know TRIT guy giving us some IT tech advice for Christmas as we go into our Christmas holiday party today here at Fox 5. So that's what we're talking about, and we're talking about how cool Brookstone is. You can just walk in there and peruse and be like, this is an amazing, interesting gift. Good for your dad, good for your mom, families.
I love Z Gallery too, is another good place. A lot of people think that it's just furniture, but they have like a lot of great home decor. So I always go in there every year to see what kind of throws they have, because you never can have too many throws.
Love that.
You know, it's the winter season. People love to cuddle, turn the fireplace on, and you can never have enough of that. Especially if you don't want to know, if you don't know anybody's size, or if it's a couple and you have to buy a couple gift. You know, you don't want to spend too much money on 2 people. You just buy that throw. So that works for a nice couple, or if somebody's buying a new house. So I love throws too.
That's a good idea. Love that. And then, T, anything on your mind for big tech gifts that people are talking about this year?
Tech gifts. Well, I guess number one on my list. After like the new iPhone X's, after the new iPhone X, I would say drones. I think those are getting they're starting to get hot again. Even the ones that have like 4K capabilities. I know that the DC area, DC specifically, is like restricted airspace, so you can't really fly your drones in the city. But you can I'm from Maryland, so I can definitely use a drone.
Right there. You cannot fly a drone past that Capitol Dome.
Yeah, that's very true.
You're gonna be in trouble.
It will get shot down.
It will get shot down. Right. Nor here, the White House. So we are in the backyard there, but that's a good one.
But drones are pretty cool. They're real neat, especially for like people who like to make movies or films.
Do you find that women are doing that, or is it just men?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's a good mix.
Really?
I don't know. I know a few that are into it that I've seen fly them and kind of teach us, but I don't know. Statistically. Okay, that's a good one.
And after that is cryptocurrencies. People are going to...
People talking about the Bitcoin.
Like Bitcoins,
currency.
Litecoins, Ethereum.
Putting money into it.
I think that a lot of families will have Christmas dinner conversations.
About it.
And that will spread the word.
You know, I think I'm saying this right now, Mom and Dad, if you're watching or if you jump on this stream later, we're probably going to have a conversation about it. Because I'm curious what my family thinks about it. And
buy now and hold.
It's almost like,
hold.
We should have bought like years ago, but
Right. Oh, wow.
Honestly. Those are really good ones. All right, so now what else leading up to Christmas? What are your plans for kind of getting ready?
Goodness. So, Christmas parties, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, most office parties are kind of done now. Or we're
I guess so. Today is ours, which is exciting. But you're right, they went down this week.
Yeah, so now we're doing house parties, and everybody's going to be over for the holidays. So I had this karaoke mic that was really cute because it's Bluetooth, and you download the app, and it holds your cell phone on top of the mic, so the words like scroll.
Perfect.
Yeah, because you don't want to have a boring Christmas party.
I think karaoke's cute, as long as people are game, which they better be. I want them to be.
Yeah.
When they're not, it's like
you gotta have some games, some good family fun games. Because just think, we're always on our phones. Everything's so moving so fast. So it's like, you really don't. Christmas is like the time where it's like, okay, family's over. Let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to the fun games and just really conversating and talking. Everybody put their phones down. Let's do some fun stuff. So that's a great
And yet with that one, there's a happy medium because you're using your phone for the karaoke, you're using an app. So that's a good thing to think about. Which apps are kind of fun to have a little spur-of-the-moment game with the fam.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it is tricky, and I can attest to it, having people of all different interests, little brother, big sister, everyone's different, and you come back together, and it's like, we got to play some family games. I like playing games. I even like all different types of games. So, that's a good one.
Yeah,
incorporate it both. All right, good.
With dinner. So,
dinner, games.
That's going to happen. And here we go. New Year's is going to be right behind.
Oh, yeah.
And T, you have a big family. You getting ready for it?
Yes, I am. Even though a lot of my family is going to leave after not after Thanksgiving, after
Christmas
Christmas.
Day.
Yeah, I think New Year's is gonna be like a little smaller, just me and maybe my bros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything leading up to New Year's? And I also want to talk about your outfit because it's so cool. Where it's from, what it is.
You gotta bling.
It's kind of sporty, but also chic. It's both.
Holly was going crazy. She's like, I don't want to know about any of these gifts. I want to know about
the outfit. It's true. That's what captures your eye, right?
Yeah.
What?
So I got this from the H&M runway collection.
Which
it's not in the regular runway. I mean, it's not in a regular H&M store.
It's in the runway collection.
So
online?
H&M, no, you can't find it online.
It's not online.
I know. So what H&M does is that they have 2 flagship stores. They have one in New York Times Square, and then they have one in Vegas. And so that's where they send their runway pieces.
I don't think I knew that, Vegas.
Yeah. And so usually when I'm in New York, I make sure that I go there.
The Times Square one specifically.
Yeah, the Times Square one.
I didn't know that.
I was just there last week.
And I've been,
big one. I know.
and I've been to some grandiose H&Ms in New York City, but never the Times Square one.
Pricey. Typically you go in there and you're used to like maybe $40, $50.
They're reasonable.
The runway pieces may be like 70 or 80. And it's too high, but you can tell the difference. And they're one-on-one pieces. But what really did this outfit was Kourtney Kardashian wore it.
She did.
Yeah,
I love seeing that.
She put it on Instagram.
I might have seen that.
And it just
I thought I knew it.
Went out as well.
So the thing with Runway is it is H&M branded. It's not a collaboration with another brand. It's them.
Their brand. Yeah, it's their brand. It's what they feature on New York Fashion Week and some of their things. So they always have great pieces. Yes, I always try to make sure that I go there.
And you went to the Times Square one, and you tried it on, and you got it.
And I was like, oh, this is a winner.
Reasonable and cool.
Sometimes I break
is it one
up.
piece or 2 piece? You can break it up.
Pieces. One time I wore the pants with a black blazer.
I like the breakup too.
But then today I was like, it's holiday, so let me just,
She wore it doubled up. She wore it together.
Yeah, and it just like sold out.
Isn't that fun? So somehow you snagged it.
It's funny because it's a catch-22 with them Kardashians now. You're happy when they have on something that's affordable. You're like, oh, wait a minute, that's attainable. I can get that. But then it's like it's gonna be gone really quick. So, and usually they're pushing their own brands. But I was surprised that she told people that it was from H&M.
I love that. Yeah. And sometimes, they do push their own brands. You're right.
Yeah,
the celeb endorsement does a little bit for sure with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and then as we go into, I guess, the New Year kind of season, what will you bring special? Are you going to come back on our morning show and do some New Year specials?
Some New Year specials. But yeah, make sure everybody's wearing metallics.
Yes, they're
sequin.
huge.
Don't be scared of sequins. Okay.
Sequin metallic is big. Metallic makeup and metallic stuff has been in forever.
Like even if you're not dressed up, like I've even seen metallic rose gold like moto jackets. Like you can do that with some jeans. Just make sure you have a festive color on them.
I love a beautiful rose gold pump and like the metallic
shoes.
I love.
And you're in the seat,
Gorgeous.
I just say metallics. If you're scared of sequins, just go metallic. Make sure that you're sparkling a little bit.
Are you going to do some metallics, T?
Yeah, I got some gold Nike foam posits.
Yeah, see?
The silver ones too work.
They're good. I'm telling you, metallic is so in right now.
The dudes love it.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Let me just quick show your picture because this was your was this your little promo for our show this morning?
Yeah.
Let me do a split screen so you guys can see.
Instagram.
You did?
Yes, last night and this morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Tam Lee. This is her.
Yeah,
Insta.
I get really excited about my 12 favorite things. It's probably one of my favorite segments out of the year. I mean, I do about a good 20 per year, but this is one of my favorite by far.
Isn't that fun?
So I really think about my products and I really love. They're really my favorite thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that, and she does think about her products. I remember when I first came on here and just met Tam in the newsroom, and we kind of went up for a segment and stuff. It was always so fun. It was such a delight for her to do a segment, so I could see her. Whatever she was bringing was like the hot stuff of that kind of moment.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So it's always super fun. This is her Instagram there, Boutique Hush.
Yeah. You guys
try to
go
grab
back
her.
and watch the segment.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna clip it. We're gonna clip it.
Yeah.
And if you're interested, we'll put it on our website, I believe, right? And or our
it's on
Twitter.
there. Yeah.
So you guys know you can follow us on all platforms, Fox 5 DC, Snap, Insta, Twitter. And we'll have Tam on periodically whenever we can to chat about favorite
always
things.
Coming down here to chat with her. Y'all.
I love it.
So
And we get her like periodically. So I'm like, whenever she's here, let me snag her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we got T in the newsroom talking about tech, and we got some sports stuff maybe, and we're excited about the huge going into this week.
Yes.
You guys have any big? I guess we roll into the holidays, right? I'm flying out Friday. Anybody else traveling, or no? You guys are around.
I'm working.
You are.
I have so many husbands.
Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, I have so many husbands right now that are like panicking, like, "Hey,
you have to
just
do
take my
shopping
card."
stuff.
Yeah. So I do
So
a lot
you
of
do the
personal
personal
shopping for husbands during the holiday. because
that's fun. That's
they
hard.
Be the MVP of the holidays, and so they need me.
That's super
tough. So I'm working. I'm always working.
That's awesome. I mean, holiday time.
Yeah, usually January is like my.
You're right, decompressed. Do you get to spend time with family on Monday and stuff?
Oh,
I mean, you're your fam. Good.
Yeah, I'll be home Monday.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, I wish you guys happy holidays, happy New Year, all that good stuff. Be safe, look cute,
I
have
know.
fun.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it is. It's a great time of the year, so I'm excited and get ready for 2018. Yes. Write your goals down.
Right.
Figure out what it is that you want to do in 2018.
I'm curious who out there who has.
I do that every year. I'm so serious about my goals. I'm so serious about my personal goals, my business goals, and because if you don't write them down, you don't have anything to look forward to.
Look at it.
Yeah, physically. It's like, okay, you gotta hold yourself accountable. So what is it that you want to do? And don't say you want to lose weight.
I know the classic. I'm curious who out there, are you guys serious? Does anyone get really serious and write down their intentions like Tam does? And I think it is. I think a lot of people do. And if you really stop and think about New Year's and what it means to you, I think it's an important moment to have. So
it is. It's a good way to refresh, even though you can change it any time of the year. But it's a great way to psychologically just hit that reset button and start again. Yeah.
It really is. New Year's is one of my favorite times of the year. In fact, it might even be, I'm not just saying this because we're talking about it now, it might be my favorite kind of holiday of this season because it is a reset, it's a new beginning, there's a lot of thought and mental kind of process that goes in it, and I think that's what I like. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Tam. All right, so we're going to cut her segment. You can find it online, and we'll have T kind of slide into the chair if he has some time to chat with me. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right.
I'm off to the mall.
We'll give her a little break, put up this White House, we'll come back right back.
All right.
She's off to the mall. Guys, we're back in the newsroom, and Sam just came by because she won one of the prizes today from Fox 5.
She's a winner.
I'm telling you, but Graham, you just said it. We're doing Christmas in the newsroom. We're having a fun little holiday day. We have a couple parties because, as you know, the staff is varied all over the place with hours. So we have a couple different parties to accommodate all shifts. Sam here, you've probably met her, one of our web producers. You were called as one of the half-hour winners. What did you go claim?
So Patrick had a little thing with.
I'm curious. Did you get to choose what you got?
So yes and no.
Okay, let's hear this.
The way that it works, because it's a surprise. I hope everybody can hear me. Is you pick a number that Patrick had in a little dish. Patrick, our GM.
Oh.
And then based on that number, you could pick a present. So this was number 17.
In a chunk. Oh. Yeah. And you're not supposed to show anybody this, or?
I mean, no. I was gonna make it like a social media post, so here we go.
Here we go. We're on YouTube.
So this is number
Here's
17.
the big reveal. And then I guess we'll maybe go to Trump and taxes later, but we're gonna stay in the newsroom and talk about Christmas. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Oh, Graham, thanks so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Have some stuff.
Donuts. We got junk food. We got stuff all over the place.
It's I don't know what it is.
Mousse.
It's a fitness bottle.
This is amazing. Okay, so it's the only bottle designed to reduce bacteria accumulation. Easy to clean, non-stick with a round bottom where functionality meets style. And so you basically put stuff in, shake it up, it's dishwasher safe.
I can make my protein shakes.
That's a nice gift. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm excited. We're getting our names called on the half hour. I'm hoping to get mine called. I will be bolting out of the show and like running up to get my kid.
Enjoy smoothies.
It's all about the number you pick though, right? So I have a chance. I have a good chance.
So we got, let's see what it is. Oh, my phone's back there.
We got people excited for the newsroom party. Everyone's got cookies and donuts.
Work before the.
Not the best. I was telling everybody I'm trying to be
thing.
clean before the holidays. I'm trying to eat cleanly this week, be really good. I've been good minus being in this newsroom, but you know.
So
all the holiday treats.
The moose bottle.
This is really cool. Anybody else heard of this, or do you have one? Let me know in the chat.
Yeah, please let me know if you like it or you've heard of it, because I had not heard of this before.
This is really fun. We're doing a gift segment.
So you can show this up to the camera.
Wow. Smoothies, supplements, water, infusions. Good shot. No, that's neat. Actually, great gift, Sam. This is a great idea. You could even use these ideas for gifts for others, right?
Yeah, so some of it I think was gag gifts. Some of it was...
Graham,
I got...
drum roll. Yeah, you want to see the full unboxing. Hey, this is like the gift episode, right?
I got
Pat, what do you think about this?
A shake bottle that's supposed to be reduced bacteria presents.
I got sweat patches.
I love it. So this run the gamut from serious things to fun.
This is also kind of jokey in its own
things.
right.
Yeah.
So,
I bet you a lot of things will be jokey. They're fun. Are you hoping to get? I mean, you're waiting on your name, right?
I hope I get a drone.
You have the mic on? Oh, you have it.
Yeah.
You want the drone? I mean, you can't get T away from the Bitcoin and drone.
Yeah,
right?
I want the drone.
Mr. Rosario wants a drone.
I hope that they're giving away drones.
It's so exciting.
They probably aren't, but.
Well, guys, continuing, if you're interested in the breaking news, the House goes on today to talk more about the tax reform vote. Yesterday, the House passed the bill, but there were some stipulations, and so they need to kind of go through something else today. Right now, Nancy Pelosi is speaking on the House floor. We also have some playback of President Trump coming up, but I want to make sure we kind of take what's interesting. But as you know, that was the big news. It's a $1.5 trillion tax cut. It will raise the debt. There's a lot of nuanced things behind it that can be explained by some of our reporters that have delved more into it. But basically, there were some changes due to rule violations. So the Senate said yes, but because of the changes, the House has to revote. That's planned for today. So kind of multiple things involved in that. But that's the big news of this week and this day, really. So we've been kind of chatting about that in the newsroom a little bit. Richer Americans are going to see a tax break. Individual tax cuts will expire in a few years. And it really depends how much you make. So there is sort of a bracket. The bracket has also shifted, I'm aware of, and then the percentages have changed. So a lot of nuanced numbers behind this whole thing, worth reading into, worth kind of seeing what they have to say on the Hill. And like I said, the president is speaking now, but I think we're getting some tape playback of him speaking from earlier. So I will kind of play that out a little bit, especially as we go to our party. But I'm glad that you guys noticed it's Christmas in the newsroom. We're celebrating the holiday week. T's got his holiday sweater on. I told you I was getting too hot, so I took this off. But I have what I think is kind of the ultimate millennial holiday thing here. Isn't that cute? And who doesn't love a great avocado? A perfectly cut, ripened avocado.
I love guacamole.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love it too. Who doesn't, right, guys? Calex is saying he wants what does he want? More photography, more exercise, maybe a girlfriend in the new year. I was asking about New Year's intentions. Thanks for answering that. That's nice to kind of hear you guys what you think about the New Year's. I'm telling you, I think it's a meaningful time, and I think it's more meaningful, at least for me, I think, to come to the end of the year and sort of think about what's next. And there's a lot more introspection that is involved with that than just like crazy Christmas.
Yeah.
Right? Do you like New Year's?
I like New Year's, yeah. You know, it's another day off work, and you know you get to start fresh. It's just
starting fresh. No, I really do. I'm curious to hear your opinions too about the holiday season. Do you buy into kind of the craze of the week as we go into crazy Christmas shopping? I know everyone has a different sort of tradition with his or her family, whether it be gift giving or not, and then of course whatever holiday you celebrate, everyone has sort of a different week leading up to it, but. There is sort of the all-important time, I think, of New Year's that we all can share. So it's fun to kind of go into the end of the year. So yesterday we had most of our stream on tax reform. I know it got a little monotonous there on the Hill, hearing from some different people speak, and it is a pretty loaded sort of topic and reform bill. But Graham, avocado soda, yeah, my avo. But I'm excited to see some of the other, switching gears quickly, sweaters upstairs, because everyone is rocking a cool, ugly sweater and decked out. And there's going to be prizes, and there's going to be fun stuff. Maybe I'll bring some food down to show you guys some of the food.
Oh, yeah, bring them some
Too
food.
much. Also, do you guys have any special foods or gifts or traditions? I'm just curious what you guys do to celebrate going into this week. Because like I said, we're a day away from winter solstice. That's tomorrow. Can you believe it? Doesn't feel like winter here. Although it did last week. It was colder, you know, than
Very
now.
cold. Now it's just like
Kind of dealing with the,
a little warmer than
yeah.
I'm used to.
I'm not complaining. I do like the warm weather, but it isn't as cold. I will tell you guys, I'm going up to New England for the holiday where I'm from, and it will be significantly colder. I don't think it will drop too far. But I also saw that showers are expected on Christmas Day, where if it were just a few degrees colder, it would be snow. So I'm wishing that it would be colder up there, but I think it's going to be just on the cusp of freezing.
Are you hoping for a white Christmas?
I mean, I always am, and I think I always was as a kid. Did you? I saw a few as a kid.
Yeah, there was a couple growing up in this area. I can remember maybe like 3 total.
Right. No, that's good for this
4,
area.
yeah.
I'll say even from New England, I'm sharing that announcement. I'm even saying from New England, I only think I saw a handful. It was, you know, it's tough to really get it exact on that day, even though I do come from a cold area.
Yeah.
Looks like, Kellex, you're spending your holidays with your parents. That's so great. Your whole family couldn't get all together. Okay, that is a tough thing. You know, I think anybody with a sort of a larger family, it's a gift every time you can get together, right?
Absolutely, and it makes those moments even better. When everyone does actually get together, that one time after 3-4 months.
It does.
You know,
and that's why we're talking like what's the important thing? Where can you get a game or a fun kind of activity that everyone will like? Because you want, you know, these moments that you have that are rare that everyone is together. So that's always fun, but glad that at least you and your parents can get together. You're going golfing on Christmas. That's because you're in warm climate, right? If I remember correctly.
Golfing, yeah.
Schultze,
awesome.
You are happy that days will get longer because of the solstice. I will say that I'm also on that team. I'm thankful that going beyond tomorrow, finally our days get longer. It's actually like that's a good point. That's a really good moment. We finally don't have these short, dark days for the rest of everything.
Yeah, these days are...
That's a great positive point to think about. That's great. And yeah, they're short and dark right now.
Very short and dark. I come into work, it's dark. I leave work, it's dark. It's like...
I know.
And
Darn
it's warm.
I know. Schultze, you want some Chia Pets? Oh my gosh, remember when those were popular?
Wow.
If we could go back to throwback from our generation or earlier. True, but remember the craze behind them. I mean, there've been so many gift crazes, right? I could think of a lot of things probably, but it's funny when you throw them out because then we can recall the Christmas crazes. I think we got one as a fan.
Chia Pets were like one of the first infomercials. Like that was like the classics, you know? Like
love it. Man, I love throwback advertising. It's one of my favorite things when people use that in their ads or like any throwback music, throwback ads,
and it's like
throwback brands.
The kids, how they dress, like when they're you know, back in the days.
Yes.
Like nowadays all you have is like copper pans and stainless steel. I mean non-stick pots and stuff. That's all I see now for infomercials.
You're right.
And like screwdrivers.
It's a true throwback.
Something random.
Oh my goodness.
Nothing as unique as like, you know, Chia Pets, where you can actually grow your own plant and then it has its own afro. You know, like that's cool.
Dude, that was fun. That was a great gift. I love. You know, I really though. I am that perfect consumer. I am like the consumer of every marketer advertiser's dream because I buy into how fun and interesting like the ads are, and then I'm like, I want it. But I will say, I'm just naturally a curious person. I like that stuff. But Kellex, so good to see that you're going to Palm Springs to visit your parents. That's nice to go from warm weather, I guess, to warm weather. And yeah, Schultze saying it won't be as depressing with the dark days kind of ending and lengthening. Thank goodness. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And like I said, it's a positive time as we go into the new year in 2018, which is wild.
Can't believe it. 2018.
Me neither.
Right around the corner, and
I know. I was hearing the 2018 numbers have made their way to Times Square last week. I think they were shipped up, and though I've never done an actual New Year's in New York, I remember being a little girl and always wanting to do it because it was like we would watch it as kids, and it was a big fanfare, but we never went. And I honestly remember every year it was I was interested in it. I think it just showed that it's one of my favorite kind of moments, one of my favorite occasions and holidays, and it's also I like the thrill sort of crowds and music and noise and stuff. So I think I was always like that type of kid. But there are people who are totally on the opposite spectrum, and I understand that. Like they hate that idea.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of just more indifferent about it. I guess we've seen so many things in Times Square, and obviously so much more security in the years post our teen kind of hood, that it's so different now to kind of make it a big visit. You've been to Times Square recently, right?
I just came back from Times Square.
You were up there
last weekend. Yeah, it was awesome. I went on a Sunday, so I mean, I assumed that it was less packed than usual. But you know, Times Square never really sleeps.
Crazy. Yeah. I'm always kind of aware when I'm there. Always kind of like on edge, I guess.
For me, it's more like all I see is lights, and it's just like all you hear is just
the noise.
I hear like the air, like in tunnels, like like in the train station.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's like a big blur of noise. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is. It's funny to imagine what the big party is like. I think I was reading Maria Menounos. I think will be joining Steve Harvey and doing the countdown. I believe this year.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they're in New York, but. Yeah, it'll be it's coming up. It's coming up really fast, and it comes up before you know it, right? New Year's. Oh, let me know your plans for that if you haven't already told me. Meanwhile, the House votes again on the tax bill after the Senate narrowly passed legislation 51-48. They vote again because of there was a small sort of stipulation, I believe, that there were some rule violations or small changes to be made based on some violations, so they're going to vote again on it. But it sounds like they have the votes, according to what we've been talking about and reading. And like I said, it is the biggest sort of talker of the week as we roll into the holidays, as things close down before the holidays, and then we're all off for Christmas, depending on your work situation. But the government is certainly out, and so, just to kind of conclude that, President Trump seems to be speaking live in a cabinet meeting, although this may be playback from about, a few minutes ago or maybe even a half hour ago. We have a piece from Trump, and we also have a live look at the House floor, people debating more about this tax bill, which I know you guys have been kind of following and probably are a little bit interested in if you're following this, whether or not you're in DC or not. So I guess let's jump over to some of those videos. We're going to kind of bring you in there. And then, like I said, we have our fun Christmas in the Newsroom holiday party with ugly sweaters, replete with photo booth, tons of food, and Fox 5 merriment. So we're so glad that you're joining us for that. So we're going to put it on a little pause later, but I do want you to see what's happening live so we can keep this show rolling on with some breaking news. So President Trump meeting with his cabinet now, and T and I may be back later to chat more, but for now, listen in. And we'll bring you a couple different looks on Capitol Hill. All right, thanks guys for watching. Happy holidays.
Recognize that we have a nation that is worth saving, and recognize that nations divided against themselves cannot stand. In this time of discord, distrust, and dishonesty, we ask that you would give us a spirit of gratitude, compassion, and common sense, and give us the wisdom to be able to guide this great nation in the future. We ask in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Ben. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Mike, would like to say a few words?
Well, I appreciate it, Mr. President. As I told you last night, shortly after the Senate vote, I know I speak on behalf of the entire cabinet and of millions of Americans when I say congratulations and thank you. Thank you for seeing through the course of this year an agenda that truly is restoring this country. You described it very well, Mr. President. From the outset of this administration, we've been rebuilding our military, putting the safety and security of the American people first. You've restored American credibility on the world stage. We're standing with our allies. We're standing up to our enemies. But you promised economic renewal at home. You said we could make this economy great again. And you promised to roll back regulations. And you signed more bills rolling back federal red tape than any president in American history. You've unleashed American energy. You've spurred an optimism in this country that's setting records. But you promised the American people in that campaign a year ago that you would deliver historic tax cuts, and it would be a middle-class miracle. And in just a short period of time, that promise will be fulfilled. And I'm deeply humbled as your Vice President to be able to be here because of your leadership, Mr. President, and because of the strong support of the leadership in the Congress of the United States. You're delivering on that middle-class miracle. You've actually got the Congress to do, as you said, what they couldn't do with Anwar for 40 years. You've got the Congress to do with tax cuts for working families and American businesses what they haven't been able to do for 31 years. And you got Congress to do what they couldn't do for 7 years in repealing the individual mandate in Obamacare. I know you would have me also acknowledge people around this table, Mr. President. I I want to thank the leaders in Congress once again for their partnership in this. I want to thank your outstanding team, your Secretary of the Treasury, Stephen Mnuchin, for Gary Cohn, for Ivanka Trump, for your great legislative team, all the members of this cabinet who partnered to drive your vision forward over the past 6 months after you laid out that vision for tax reform. But mostly, Mr. President, I'll end where I began and just tell you, I want to thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for speaking on behalf of and fighting every day for the forgotten men and women of America. Because of your determination, because of your leadership, the forgotten men and women of America are forgotten no more, and we are making America great again. Thank you, Mr. President. God bless you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Well, I also want to thank all of the members of the cabinet, and I think we have a fantastic team. And next year, we're going to go on to really some amazing things. We're making ourselves very strong again, right, General? We are strong. He was not so happy that first week when I met him. He was saying it's really depleted. Well, we're building it up rapidly, and we'll be at a level like never before. But the members of the cabinet, you've been outstanding. I like the message that Nikki sent yesterday at the United Nations for all of these nations that take our money and then they vote against us at the Security Council, or they vote against us potentially at the Assembly. They take hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars, and then they vote against us. Well, we're watching those votes. Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care. But this isn't like it used to be, where they could vote against you and then you pay them hundreds of millions of dollars and nobody knows what they're doing. So, Nikki, that was the right message that you and I agreed to be sent yesterday, and I've had a lot of good comment on it, believe me. People are tired of the United States. The people that live here are great citizens that love this country. They're tired of this country being taken advantage of, and we're not going to be taken advantage of any longer. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. President, how will the tax plan cost you a fortune? How will the tax plan cost you a fortune, Mr. President?
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I send them to you real quick?
All right, quickly, we're coming back into the newsroom, guys. That was President Trump's cabinet meeting. Of course, he got a few questions from the press at the end there that he didn't necessarily address, although he's known for often kind of stopping at the end and addressing some of the questions. We will take you back over to the House floor. They're continuing their debate, like I said. But quickly, kind of off topic, but this is interesting. Guess who was here in the newsroom yesterday for a brief meeting? And I think it was a meeting I was actually supposed to be in. I missed it. Dr. Oz himself.
Dr.
And
Oz.
T met him yesterday.
Dr. Oz met the Wizard of Oz.
Of IT.
The Wizard of IT. The Wizard of OZ.
And you have a couple pictures with him, right? We showed up. Can we bring it up to the camera?
There you go. Throw that up there.
You guys, you know, so he's on our network, or he's
Flynn.
played on Fox, and we watch him from time to time in the afternoon. Did you get to ask him any medical questions or anything?
I didn't get to ask him, no, because as soon as he was done getting interviewed by Jim Loke.
Oh, he did it. Right, he had a thing with him, right?
Yes, in the afternoon. I mean, the evening news.
They did a pre-taped thing. Mm-hmm.
So I don't even think it was pre-taped. It was live. It was live on TV. So
oh, it was then.
Yeah.
They cut in.
Yeah, because I saw him on TV, and then I was
Got
like, oh,
it.
Dr. Oz
I
there?
missed
had to
the
go.
cut in. I don't know exactly what it was about then. I probably should be more educated on it, but
he was really friendly, nice. Like there was a line of people that wanted to take a picture. Emily Stone, Sam took a picture with him.
I missed him.
But he's
Did you guys meet him up in the studio?
Yeah, right up in the studio. He was with his wife.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
He's real kind.
Smart.
We know he's smart.
Columbia University, I believe, professor and doctor, and you can look up all his stats too. But
and he looks good for his age.
How old is he now?
I'm not sure how old he is, but he doesn't look nowhere near like.
I'm confused. I didn't know. I admittedly didn't follow a lot of his stuff, but I obviously know about him and how smart he is. So I do watch him sometimes.
And you know, Molly, yourself, I feel like you're up to date with health, and you know.
I am interested in that. And I think the sort of the TV aspect too of health personalities and health shows is interesting to me. So yeah, I find it interesting. He covers a lot of fascinating topics that obviously people have questions about, and so he's very real down to earth and knows his stuff. Yeah, I am fascinated by it. I really should watch it more.
So
That's
stay
so cool.
stay tuned for Molly's new show, Dr. Molly.
I know, right?
Coming soon.
If only I had any advanced degree in medicine in any way. That'd be neat. But it is neat to blend those two and to have him, or anyone that's a personality, bring that to air, right? Because people love TV and they want to learn stuff. So educational TV has always been my thing, science shows and stuff like that.
And very nice guy overall.
Gotta love it. That's great. I'm glad you got to meet him. Sometimes we have really fascinating guests in here to do little segments and pieces, and yesterday was one of them. It was fun.
Yeah, usually, it's mostly like celebrities and, like artists and stuff.
Artists, people visiting for a show, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool that, the actual doctor came in the building.
Love it.
It's good.
Anyway, just cutting in to tell you guys that. Looks like we're getting in a replay of that meeting with President Trump, but we already showed that. So let's go over to the House floor live and see what they're debating to talk about this as we continue on with the day, guys. If you have any thoughts or questions, do let us know. Schulte said it's cool. Glad to hear he was pleasant. Dr. Oz.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah, right? Neat to kind of meet someone like that. Well, we'll be sure to tell you about who else comes in or if we have any other cool visitors this week. It's kind of funny because as we wrap up sort of the shows through this week, it's a little sparse with visitors and news because it's, the holiday week. So, thanks, Kellex. All right, let's go into the House floor. This is live. Check it out.
Monstrosity should be called Trump, the Trump Inequality Act, the Trump Family Enrichment Act, or perhaps just call it the Whopper, because it is a lie wrapped in lies, and the truth will eventually catch up with these lies.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Texas.
I reserve.
Gentleman from Texas reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized. You're recognized.
With that, I'd like to yield 30 seconds, Mr. Speaker, to the gentleman from California, a Vietnam veteran and a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Thompson.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 30 seconds.
Well, one of the most important bills that any of us will ever vote on. No hearings, no expert witnesses, and now we get 30 seconds on the floor to debate it. So let me just use my 30 seconds by saying this is a bad bill for working families. It's going to cause middle-class working families to pay more in taxes, and it's going to strap our citizens with $2.3 trillion more of national debt. I ask for a no vote.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Texas reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, the chairman of the Democratic Caucus and a valued member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Crowley.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
A revote. A revote within less than 24 hours of original passage. This proves that this bill is rotten to its core. But here's what the Republicans aren't going to fix. They didn't fix the fact that this bill won't provide economic security to hardworking families. They didn't fix the fact that this bill will subsidize mansions for the wealthy, not renters or first-time home buyers. They didn't fix the fact that it won't help families save for education or their retirement. They didn't fix the fact that it will saddle our grandchildren with $2 trillion of debt. This bill is not an investment in hard-working men and women or Americans. In fact, it rips health care from 13 million Americans. It's an investment in the GOP's base, corporate special interest, the wealthiest among the wealthiest, and the Trump entire empire. This bill is a political calculation they think will get them a win on Election Day. But be warned, Americans are fed up and fired up. They know that their cronies are laughing all the way to the bank, but the American people are organizing on
Gentleman
their
from
way
Texas
to
recognized.
November.
Gentleman from Texas reserved. Gentleman from Massachusetts recognized. Gentleman from Texas reserved. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, let me recognize the gentleman from Illinois, a champion of any and all things Chicago, Mr. Davis.
Gentleman's recognized for. Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, when you think of Robin Hood in reverse, take from the poor and give to the rich. Or when you take away social net programs, You take away Medicare and Medicaid. It reminds me of Maria Antoinette. When the people had no bread, she said, let them eat cake. I was opposed to this before it was released, opposed yesterday, opposed tomorrow, will be opposed next week. It's no good for the American people. And I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Texas reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, might I inquire as to how much time is remaining?
Massachusetts has 3.5 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Texas has 1 minute remaining.
I'm prepared to close on this side, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
I yield myself the balance of my time.
Gentleman's recognized for 3.5 minutes.
So in 1 month, we have taken the entire revenue system of the United States without hearing from one expert witness, without having had one public hearing, without using any precedent, and changed the entire tax system of the country, tilting it clearly to the people at the very top. And when they say, as they certainly will, well, we've been doing hearings for 5 years. We never had one hearing on this legislation. Not one. We did not seek testimony from one witness in the conference committee. We got to offer opening statements with no amendments. There was no chance for any input on our side. More than anything else, this is a missed opportunity. This was a missed chance to take a system that we all know to have fallen into competitive failure across the globe. But instead, they decided to go it alone. So here's the way you want to think of this for those of you who are following this debate. They are borrowing $2.3 trillion for the purpose of cutting the top tax bracket from 39.6% to 37% and calling that middle-class tax relief. They are doubling the exemption on the estate tax to $22 million and calling that middle-class tax relief. They are eliminating the alternative minimum tax for people at the very top and calling it middle-class tax relief. By the 10th year of this tax proposal, 83% of the benefit accrues to the people at the very top of our economic system. That is not in dispute. And they say things like, well, in 5 years, we're going to correct this measure. Then they talked about the idea that somehow this was about simplicity. When you get into the phase-ins and the phase-outs, you're all going to pass out from trying to read this tax proposal. The complexity that they add to the system is unparalleled, all to secure a tax cut for people at the top. So here we are in the holiday season, and they're telling us, by the way, that if we just borrow this money, that everything's going to be fine. What did they say about borrowing when Bill Clinton was president? What did they say about borrowing when Barack Obama was president? They lecture us day in and day out in an unyielding manner, even though the economic performance of Clinton and Obama outweighed the two Republican presidents in between. So here's the game plan for the holiday season. On your credit card, you know what the holiday hangover is? People go out and use their credit cards and they figure out all year how to try to pay for it. It's going to take you more than 10 years to try to pay for this, all upon the spurious notion that they guarantee economic growth, as the president said, by the way, it's going to exceed 6%. 6%. They're telling us that the stock market's gone up because of them, even though it's gone up since March of 2009. They're telling us now that this is going to spur unparalleled economic growth, even though the economy's been growing for 88 straight months. All on the credit card for the American people. Mr. Speaker, this is the worst piece of legislation that's come from the House in the 29 years that I have served here, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts' time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized. House will come to order. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
So, Mr. Speaker, yield myself the remaining balance time, and I say to my Democratic colleagues, Worst bill in 29 years with Obamacare. Don't sell yourself short. So, today we have a choice to make. We can either stick with the status quo, we just heard it. We can take bold action to overhaul this broken tax code and restore hope and opportunity, prosperity to Americans. Our choice is clear, and we have made ours. We will vote to send this bill to President Trump's desk to get real tax reform done for the American people for the first time in 31 years. We will deliver for the American people. I encourage my colleagues to join me in support of this bill. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 668, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion by the gentleman from Texas. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, with that, I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on the motion to concur will be followed by a 5-minute vote on suspending the rules and passing H.R. 1159. This is a 15-minute vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 224 and the nays are 201. The motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is on the vote on the motion from the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Dunn, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1159 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1159, a bill to provide for continuing cooperation between the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the Israel Space Agency and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
yeas are 411, the nays are 0. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
House will come to order. House will come to order. Members, if they could take their conversations to the back of the chamber or out of the chamber. For what purpose does gentleman from Texas, Mr. Henserling, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 657, I call up H.R. 4015 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar number 333, H.R. 4015, a bill to improve the quality of proxy advisory firms for the protection of investors and the U.S. economy and in the public interest by fostering accountability, transparency, responsiveness, and competition in the proxy advisory firm industry.
Pursuant to the House Resolution 657, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules of Committee, print 115-46, is adopted and the bill, as amended, is considered read. The bill, as amended, shall be debated for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair, ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Henseling, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Waters, will each control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Henseling.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and submit extraneous materials on the bill under consideration.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The gentleman is correct. The House is not in order. The House will be in order. Take your conversations off the floor. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of H.R. 4015, the Corporate Governance Reform and Transparency Act of 2017. And I thank the sponsor of this legislation, my good friend Mr. Duffy of Wisconsin, the chairman of the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee of our committee, for offering this bill. Each year, Mr. Speaker, public companies hold shareholder meetings where shareholders vote for the company's directors and on other significant corporate actions that require shareholder approval. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The gentleman is correct. Ladies and gentlemen, the House is to be in order. Take your conversations off the floor. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the Securities and Exchange Commission requires that before these annual shareholder meetings take place, public companies must provide shareholders with proxy statements that include all important facts about matters to be voted on at a shareholder meeting. Many shareholders and investment advisors rely on information provided by proxy advisory firms to guide their votes on these matters. H.R. 4015 would enhance transparency in the shareholder proxy system by requiring proxy advisory firms to register with the SEC, disclose potential conflicts of interest and codes of ethics, and make their methodologies public. Mr. Speaker, this is a pure disclosure bill. Nothing more, nothing less. Proxy firms play an outsized role in the U.S. economy in shaping corporate governance. They counsel pension plans, mutual funds, and other institutional investors about how to vote the shares of corporations that they own. With respect to institutional investors, Mr. Speaker, the share of institutional investor ownership was roughly 46% as recently as 1987, but today that figure is more than 75%. In other words, the volume of proxy votes for which investors are responsible has grown into the billions. In 2003, the SEC adopted a rule under the Investment Advisors Act that requires an investment advisor to vote in the best interest of their clients on proxies. A series of SEC no-action letters give the investment advisor a fundamental safe harbor from liability if they use a proxy advisor. As a result, institutional investors have increasingly relied on proxy advisory firms to help them decide how to vote their shares. However, regulators, market participants, and academic observers have highlighted potential conflicts of interest that are inherent in the business models and activities of proxy advisory firms. The committee, for example, is aware of numerous instances whereby the two largest proxy advisory firms have issued vote recommendations to shareholders that include errors, misstatements of facts, and incomplete analysis. For example, in one instance, a company reported that even though the total shareholder return the company actually had generated for its shareholders was 64%, the proxy advisory firm Glass Lewis erroneously reported this calculation to be 26%. Another company reported that ISS erroneously reported that the company's long-term cash awards will vest and pay out their maximum opportunity in the event of a change of control. Well, this was reported even though the company's plan had been amended and approved by the shareholders years earlier in a manner that would pay out at target upon change in control, and there are many other examples. Some proxy advisory firms' recommendations have been made without any contact to the public company at all, and then these same proxy advisory firms encourage companies to join their service in order to have the privilege to, quote, influence an advisory firm's recommendations. I suspect for many people this simply does not pass the smell test. An industrial company told its shareholders, Mr. Speaker, quote, ISS's negative recommendation was based on flawed analysis of our compensation programs that did not appropriately take into account the significant declines in our CEO's pay in 2015 or the performance-based nature of our annual and long-term incentive compensation programs. A pharmaceutical company responded to a proxy advisory firm's recommendations with this statement, quote, for the second year in a row, Glass Lewis did not include its full pay for performance analysis in this report. For shareholders who rely only on Glass Lewis materials to make voting decisions, there is no discussion of the company's industry-leading performance over this time period. Again, Mr. Speaker, there are many, many more examples like these. So another concern that many people have, Mr. Speaker, is that the two largest proxy advisory firms collectively make up 97% of the proxy advisory industry, 97%. This monopolization and the lack of transparency regarding proxy advisory firms means that the writings, analysis, reports, and voting recommendations of these two firms have a disproportionate effect on fundamental corporate transactions like mergers or acquisitions, the approval of corporate directors, and shareholder proposals. In other words, these two firms have a huge impact on our economy. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy's bill, helps address these concerns by setting up a new regulatory regime for proxy advisory firms that looks out for the interest of investors, shareholders, by ensuring they receive complete information through the proxy process and can better vote in a manner consistent with shareholder interest, as opposed to the potential conflicted interest of a proxy firm. Mr. Duffy's bill also helps ensure that shareholders and their proxies have access to accurate information regarding companies by allowing companies to provide input on proxy recommendations. This is especially important for emerging growth companies that rely heavily on investors. A bad proxy recommendation in which emerging growth companies cannot refute the recommendation can be devastating to those emerging growth companies and thus have a harmful impact on our economy. In a letter to our committee, the Biotechnology Innovation Organization wrote, quote, "Small business innovators operate in a unique industry that values a strong relationship with investors. Yet they are often held to standards that are not applicable to their company and forced to engage in proxy fights over issues that do not add value to shareholders. H.R. 4015 would provide for SEC oversight of proxy advisory firms, ensuring that they operate within appropriate boundaries and can be held accountable to regulators and the public," unquote. To be clear, Mr. Speaker, nothing in this bill permits companies to rewrite a proxy firm's report or force a proxy firm to change its recommendation based on feedback received from the company. In summary, H.R. 4015 will improve transparency in the proxy system and enhance shareholder access to information by ensuring that proxy advisory firms are registered with the SEC, disclose potential conflicts of interest and codes of ethics, and make publicly available their methodologies for forming proxy recommendations and analysis. For every member who believes in investor protection and supports a healthier economy, they should support H.R. 4015. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, H.R. 4015, the so-called Corporate Governance Reform and Transparency Act, would create an untested, inappropriate, and burdensome regulatory framework for proxy advisory firms, making it much more difficult for shareholders to obtain unbiased research used to make well-informed voting decisions about the companies they own. Institutional investors, like pension funds and mutual funds, typically invest money on behalf of hardworking Americans in a large number of public companies. In exchange for their investment, companies provide investors with shares of ownership and a say on important proposed changes to how the companies are run. These proposals may relate to who sits on the board of directors, how much executives are paid, environmental practices, employee minimum wage, and non-discrimination policies. Shareholders often hire independent researchers called proxy advisory firms to help inform their voting decisions on the many proposals they consider each year. H.R. 4015 contains numerous provisions that would undermine proxy advisory firms and the shareholders that rely on them for unbiased advice. First, H.R. 4015 would essentially fulfill the wishes of corporate management by regulating proxy advisory firms out of existence. The bill requires proxy advisory firms to register with the Securities and Exchange Commission and authorizes the SEC to deny applications on a whim. Additionally, H.R. 4015 would force proxy advisors to publicly disclose their internal proprietary research methodologies and voting policies, which firms invest time and money into developing. The bill would also require proxy advisors to hire a sort of compliant department dedicated entirely to the grievances of corporate management rather than the advisor's own shareholder clients. These burdensome requirements would deter new proxy advisors from entering the market and squeeze out smaller, cost-sensitive firms. As a result, shareholders would be faced with ever-increasing fees to obtain research from a shrinking universe of advisors. Second, H.R. 4015 would grant corporate management the right to review and weigh in on a proxy advisor's draft recommendations before The shareholder clients who pay for the recommendations get to see a final report. If management raises a complaint that the advisor disagrees with, the bill allows management to get the last word by publishing its dissenting opinion in the advisor's final report. In other words, the bill is the equivalent of requiring that a teacher clear a report card with a student before sending it to his or her parents. Finally, 4015 is unnecessary in light of existing federal securities laws. For example, some proxy advisors, such as the largest firm, Institutional Shareholder Services, are already registered and regulated as investment advisors under the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. As such, they already owe heightened obligations to their customers, must make regular, comprehensive disclosures to regulators and the public, and are subject to periodic compliance examinations, among other legal responsibilities. Additionally, the SEC has already provided guidance on due diligence and oversight relating to proxy advisors. H.R. 4015 would replace this well understood guidance with a harmful and inappropriate regulatory regime that undermines investors' ability to simply exercise their shareholder rights. Tellingly, nothing in H.R. 4015 advances the bill's purported goals of, quote, fostering accountability, transparency, responsiveness, and competition in the proxy advisory firm industry. Shareholders hold corporations and their management accountable by casting well-informed votes on important issues of corporate governance, including issues of diversity. For example, a recent study by Ernst & Young found that corporate board diversity and gender pay equity were key themes in the 2017 proxy season. Specifically, Ernst & Young found that over half of the investors it interviewed included diversity as a board priority in 2017, and, quote, proposals asking boards to report on and increase their board diversity are among the top shareholder proposals submitted this year, quote unquote. H.R. 2015 would render these important accountability efforts ineffective, as the institutional shareholders driving governance changes would be less able to obtain the research needed to inform voting decisions. Now, I can imagine that Americans listening to this debate may get confused that Republicans who have been singularly focused on repealing important safeguards and protections for America's consumers and investors are now claiming that they are seeking to protect investors with these new rules. But Mr. Speaker, if this bill truly helped investors, why have so many from all over America written letters to Congress opposing H.R. 2015? To name a few, the bill's opponents include public pension funds and government officials from California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, New York, Ohio, Oregon, and Washington. These investors joined a letter from Council of Institutional Investors stating that H.R. 4015, quote, would weaken corporate governance in the United States, undercut proxy advisory firms' ability to uphold their fiduciary obligation to their investor clients, and reorient any surviving firms to serve companies rather than investors, quote unquote. Proponents of effective corporate governance, including Americans for Financial Reform, Consumers Federation of America, Public Citizen, and Principles for Responsible Investment, have similarly written to oppose this bill. For example, the Consumer Federation of America wrote that H.R. 4015, quote, would empower companies to bully proxy advisory firms into dropping their objections to management proposals or watering down their recommendations, quote unquote. Private institutional investors also agree that 4015 would leave shareholders reliant on biased information tilted toward the interests of company management. Sound corporate governance requires shareholders to have access to impartial information when voting on key corporate issues. If our nation's investors who provide the capital for businesses to grow jobs and our economy are unable to hold corporations accountable, they will be increasingly reluctant to invest. H.R. 4015 would thereby hurt the very businesses it purports to assist. For these reasons, I urge my colleagues to join me in opposing H.R. 4015, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The lady from California reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 10 seconds just to say it's a historic day in America. Republicans deliver historic tax relief for working Americans and small businesses, and the ranking member has articulated concern over burdensome requirements. I look forward to working with her now on reducing the burdensome requirements of the Dodd-Frank Act. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Huizinga, the chairman of the Financial Services Subcommittee on Capital Markets.
The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as has been pointed out, each year public companies convene these shareholder meetings at which the company's shareholders vote for the company's directors and on other significant corporate actions that require shareholder approval. As part of this annual process, the Securities and Exchange Commission requires public companies to provide their shareholders with a proxy statement before those meetings. A proxy statement includes all important facts excuse me, about the matters to be voted on at the meeting, including, for example, information on board of directors candidates, director compensation, executive compensation, related party transactions, securities ownership by management, and eligible shareholder proposals. The information contained in the statement must be filed with the SEC before soliciting a shareholder vote on the election of directors and the approval of these other corporate actions. Solicitations, whether by management or shareholders, must disclose all important facts about the issues on which the shareholders are being asked to vote. Institutional investors, including investment advisors to mutual funds and pension funds, typically hold shares in a large number of public companies. Each year, the investment advisors to these funds vote billions of shares on behalf of their clients on thousands of proxy ballot items. What you've heard about really was the theoretical way this is supposed to run. Unfortunately, that's not reality, and that's not what you're hearing from the other side. Because in 2003, the SEC adopted a rule under the Investment Advisors Act of 1940 requiring an investment advisor that exercises voting authority over its clients' proxies to adopt policies and procedures designed to ensure that the investment advisor votes those proxies in the best interests of their clients. Perfect. It's exactly what they should be doing. The SEC's release adopting the rule clarified that, quote, an advisor could demonstrate that the vote was not a product of conflict of interest if it voted client securities in accordance with the predetermined policy based upon the recommendations of an independent third party. Okay so far, but here's where we see the problem. As a result, institutional investors increase their reliance on these proxy advisor firms to help them decide how to vote their shares. In 2004, the SEC staff, without a commission vote, just the staff, issued 2 no-action letters effectively blessing the practice of investment advisors simply voting their recommendations provided by a proxy advisor, according to SEC Commissioner Dan Gallagher. Largely as a result of the SEC's regulation, proxy advisor firms now wield tremendous outside influence on the U.S. proxy system. Studies have shown that the 2 largest proxy advisor firms comprise of approximately 97% of all the proxy advisory industry and can control a significant percentage of share votes in corporate elections, which is sometimes as high as 40%. There have been numerous instances where these 2 firms have issued vote recommendations on publicly traded companies that include errors, misstatements of fact, and incomplete analysis. Additionally, some proxy advisory firms' recommendations have been made without any sort of communication or contact with the public company that they are actually reviewing. In fact, these same proxy advisors firms even encourage companies to join their service on the other side of the ledger in order to have the privilege to, quote, influence an advisory firm's recommendations. You heard from the ranking member about a teacher having to check with the student about what their grades are going to be as a student. Well, what this is, Mr. Speaker, this is the teacher shaking down the student for their lunch money and milk money to make sure that they're behaving. So let's talk about reality here. So regulators, market participants, and academic observers have highlighted potential conflicts of interest inherent to this business model and activities of these proxy firms. For example, proxy advisory firms may feel pressured by their largest clients, many of whom may be activist investors, to issue voting recommendations that reflect those clients' specific agendas, not the boards or the corporations. Additionally, proxy advisory firms often provide voting recommendations.
You're recognized for an additional minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, proxy advisory firms often provide voting recommendations to investment advisors on matters for which they also provide consulting services to public companies. Talk about, again, a conflict of interest. Some proxy advisory firms also rate or score these public companies on their governance structures, policies, practices, and they are trying to actually influence the corporate governance practices of these companies. Essentially, these proxy advisory firms have hijacked the proxy system by aligning themselves with activist shareholders who also might be their clients to push social and political initiatives rather than using shareholder votes to maximize shareholder value and increasing shareholder returns. Well, 4015 is to the rescue on this. It would foster greater accountability, competition, responsiveness, and most importantly of all, transparency. This legislation would ensure that voting recommendations at proxy advisory firms are in fact in the interests of long-term shareholders. And so let's not misunderstand. The role of these proxy advisory firms serves a very important place in our economy. However, these firms aren't immune to conflicts of interest. The good work of my friend Mr. Duffy on 4015 will improve that transparency.
Gentleman's time has expired.
And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas reserves. The gentlewoman from
Thank you
California is
very
recognized.
much, Mr. Speaker. It's not enough that my friends on the opposite side of the aisle just voted to give the biggest tax breaks to America's richest corporations. They're back here now supporting the control and the dominance of corporations over our investors who need protections. The difference between us and them, they're for deregulation of Dodd-Frank and protection for consumers to support however they can give it for the biggest corporations in America. I will now yield 3 minutes to the distinguished ranking member of the Subcommittee on Capital Markets, Securities, and Investments, Ms. Maloney of New York.
The gentlewoman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in
For
support of investor protection and in opposition to H.R. 4015. Proxy advisors provide recommendations to institutional investors on how to vote on board of director elections, shareholder resolutions. Big institutional investors are shareholders at thousands of public companies, and they simply don't have time to carefully review every single 100-page proxy statement in detail, especially because most public companies hold their shareholders' meetings at about the same 3-month period. So institutional investors rely on proxy advisors for vote recommendations, which are often tailored to the investor's particular corporate governance preferences. They also rely on proxy firms for their data management on shareholder votes and corporate governance. This is healthy. Proxy advisors do actually have the time to carefully read all of the statements and proposals because they are professionals that are hired to do just that. I agree that the current system, regulatory system for proxy advisors is not perfect. 2 proxy advisory firms account for 97% of the market, ISS and Glass Lewis. But for some reason, they're regulated differently. ISS is a registered investment advisor, while Glass Lewis is not. Surely this is not an ideal setup. So I'm open to the idea of a better and more consistent regulatory regime for proxy advisors. But there are several things in this bill that concern me deeply. I don't see why companies should have a statutory right to receive and comment on a proxy advisor's draft recommendations before they're sent to investors. Proxy advisors aren't federal agencies with a notice and comment for private companies. They're working for private companies that are providing a valuable service. This is not appropriate at all. Asset managers that use proxy advisors also tell me that they would find proxy advisors a lot less useful if the proxy firm had to give the company an opportunity to comment on their vote recommendations before sending them to the asset manager. And a new addition to the bill is very troubling. This would raise the possibility of proxy advisors being forced to send the clients the company's own complaints about the proxy advisor's recommendations, even if the complaint is completely untrue. This is totally inappropriate, and I would say plain wrong. So while I am sympathetic to the idea that a better and more consistent regulatory regime could be developed, I cannot support this bill, and I have good company here and would ask permission, unanimous consent, to place in the record a letter from the Comptroller of the State of New York, Comptroller DiNapoli, a statement from the AFL-CIO of the United States of America, a statement from the institutional investors, the Consumer Federation of America, and a statement by Glass Lewis. This is a troubling bill. I urge my colleagues to vote no on it. It's bad for safety and soundness and for good governance in this country.
Gentlewoman from California reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased now to yield 3 minutes to our Republican committee whip, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Hill.
The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the Speaker. I thank the Chairman. I rise in support today of the Corporate Governance Reform and Transparency Act of 2017 and appreciate my good friend Sean Duffy's work on it. Over the past 3 decades, I've advocated for responsible shareholder activism and urged for corporate boards of directors to perform their responsibility of careful stewardship, particularly in the essential functions in evaluating corporate strategy, hiring able and working executive management, and critically, capital allocation. For example, as Berkshire Hathaway CEO Warren Buffett recommends, corporate compensation committees must be composed of saber-toothed tigers, not house cats, in their work. Likewise, investors must take their responsibility to hold boards accountable for their irreplaceable role in maximizing returns for shareholders while executing a corporate strategy that balances shareholder returns with employees and customers. So the question is, how can investors effectively lower agency costs and actively meet this accountability mission? For 20 years, this has been a much discussed area by thoughtful experts. Like Buffett, ISS founder Robert Monks, Marty Lipton, Lawrence Cunningham, grad schools at UCLA, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, all researched this challenge. Organizations of institutional investors, corporate directors, all pro-offer best practices. And how do we best align these interests for this mission, but make conflicts of interest readily apparent? The role of proxy advisory firms in the U.S. economy has grown over the last 2 decades and is a major shaper of corporate governance. And it's of national importance. These firms counsel our pension plans, our mutual funds, other institutional investors, which are more and more in the market. 75% of the market compared to when Robert Monks started thinking about the idea in the late 1980s. Under the current system, 2 proxy advisory firms now have 97% of the market, Mr. Speaker. And this monopolization and the lack of transparency regarding their work means that their writing, analysis, reports, and vote recommendations of just these 2 firms have a disproportionate effect on the fundamental corporate transactions like mergers and acquisitions, the approval of corporate directors, and other shareholder proposals. Also, this has created more of a checklist mentality in the boardroom. Directors today need information, yes, but more importantly, they need wisdom. And the proxy advisory firms are driving people in boardrooms, in my view, to more of a checklist
mentality, regulatory mentality, and less using their business judgment and wisdom to guide our public companies. Proxy advisory firms aren't immune to conflicts of
I yield the
interest.
gentleman an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you. These conflicts are provided by providing additional recommendations to the very firms that they're rating. So, Mr. Speaker, we need balance in this arena. And I think Mr. Duffy's bill provides a step towards that balance, an improvement in transparency in the proxy system, thereby enhancing shareholder access to important investment information. I appreciate his work on it. I thank his work in our committee, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas
Thank you very
reserves.
much.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I yield 3 minutes to the hardworking member of the Financial Services Committee, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waters. This is indeed a very, very important issue, Mr. Speaker. I come at this from one who have worked with my good friend, Mr. Duffy, on this issue. More than that, I voted with Mr. Duffy for this bill in committee. However, there is some troubling things about this bill that could do one very damaging thing. It could put many of these proxy firms out of business. And I want to take a moment to explain what the danger is in the bill that made me change my mind. And I chatted with Mr. Duffy about it. He understands it. This is not to shed any negative light on his objective, but it's what he's doing to get to that objective that disturbs me, and I think should disturb the people of this Congress and this country, and that is this. It could be summed up in basically 2 words: unilateral authority. That's what this bill provides to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Unilateral authority to set the requirements, first of all, for what it means to be a proxy firm. When you put unilateral authority into the hands of a regulatory agency, we know the damage that can be done. And I agree that there may be some things that need to be done. But these words, unilateral authority, would mean that the Securities and Exchange Commission could establish any number of hurdles for these proxy advisor firms to jump over in order to just stay in business. Unilateral authority to do such things as setting financial requirements. One would say nothing may be wrong with that, but other hurdles that the Securities and Exchange Commission could put up likely will be arbitrary, illogical, such as them setting requirements for how many employees a proxy firm should have. And Mr. Speaker, this is a step too far. And it's especially during a time in our country when federal regulators have used their powers to attack the American people at any and other level. May I have 30 seconds to continue this
Grant to the
point?
gentleman an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman's recognized for another 30 seconds. Let me give you an example how you can put too much regulatory authority into an agency. When HSS this year used their powers to attack women's health, that happened. Or when the Department of Justice used their powers to reverse community policing reformings at the Department of Justice. All I'm saying in this particular argument, Mr. Speaker, is Mr. Duffy is well intended, but this goes too far, and I urge my colleagues to reject and vote no on this bill.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from California reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Budd.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I rise today in support of H.R. 4015, and I want to thank Chairman Duffy for his leadership on this bipartisan piece of legislation, which will improve our country's shareholder proxy system. Since the early 2000s, we've seen market share in the shareholder proxy system consolidate essentially into a duopoly, as 2 firms control 97% of the market. And so, under the current system, potential conflicts of interest abound. For example, proxy advisor firms that provide voting recommendations to advisors often provide consulting services to those same public companies. So wouldn't it make sense that they at least notify their shareholders of this potential conflict of interest? Well, right now, while the SEC has offered guidance on this problem, the proxy firm wouldn't be required to do so. We need to get this bill on the books just to address this problem. This bill is also timely because we've seen proxy firms align themselves with political causes, unions, and align themselves with interest groups that do not always represent their shareholders' best interest. And shareholders oftentimes aren't even aware of these conflicts. Again, reform is needed. And so it should go without saying, Mr. Speaker, that the 2 problems outlined above, they pose problems for the shareholder and for the average investor. We cannot continue to allow the securities laws and processes to be wrapped in a service of political agenda. We've dealt with this issue in the Financial Services Committee on a number of fronts with regard to disclosure of information that's being weaponized against public companies, from mining to conflict minerals. It's time to deal with a proxy issue today. The number of public companies has fallen in recent years. It was never easy to be public, to be subject to the financial markets, and the pressures that come from being accountable to your shareholders. This issue, the proxy issue, is part of a larger tapestry of challenges that public companies face. They are increasingly choosing not to play the game. They're getting capital from dark pools, they're getting capital from hedge funds, and they're just staying private. That puts investment opportunities in the hands of the 1%, and that leaves retail investors out in the cold. Mr. Speaker, my constituents and North Carolina shareholders are, from the part-time trader to the full-time trader, they deserve better than this. And luckily, this body can do something to address these problems, and that's where Chairman Duffy's bipartisan legislation comes into play. His bill will bring about much-needed accountability, competition, and most importantly, transparency in the proxy and advisory firm industry. And his bill also protects clients and their financial future from being influenced by activists and outside interest groups. His legislation accomplishes this by mandating that proxy advisory firms register with the SEC, disclose potential conflicts of interest to the shareholders, and make their methods for coming up with proxy recommendations available to the public. 2 proxy advisory firms should not have this much control of the marketplace and the power to disproportionately affect fundamental corporate transactions. This bill is a win for the consumer, a win for the free market, and should be a bipartisan priority for this body. A number of outside commentators have been clear that the proxy industry has gained a worrisome degree of authority over companies. In fact, Columbia Law professor Jeffrey Gordon said that the burden of annual voting would lead investors, particularly institutional investors, to farm out evaluation of most pay plans to a handful of proxy advisory firms who themselves will seek to economize on those very proxy review costs. There are a host of others who are saying these same things about the way things are today in proxy voting. Ultimately, the shareholder is the one who suffers. We should put a stop to it. Once again, I want to thank Chairman Duffy for leading the fight on this issue, and I urge adoption of his legislation. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I yield 3 minutes to an invaluable member of the Financial Services Committee, the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Capuano.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentlelady for yielding. You know, this is one of those mundane issues that 95% of America doesn't understand. I didn't understand much about it a while back because I don't have any proxy advisors. I do have money in retirement funds, and I do get those 100-page documents in the mail saying we're having a proxy fight and you should read it in the smallest print possible, and I do what 95% of America does. When I get those, I throw them right in the trash. Now, that doesn't make me smart. It just means I can't read through that stuff. I can't understand what they're doing with my pension funds. I kind of have to go on faith that they're not sticking it to me. That's what most of us do, and most anybody listening to this, that's the only thing they have to do with this issue. So I went out and found out what is a proxy advisor. Here's what it is. The pension funds, not always, but mostly pension funds, that invest my pension money, do it all across the board. Many of them are small, some of them are big. And when it comes time to reading those 100-page documents in the thousands of companies they are invested in, they go out and hire somebody to help them do it. A proxy advisor. They go through those documents through accountants and actuaries and give them advice. Not a demand, advice. Now, I don't know about you, I get advice from my lawyer on occasion. I get advice from my accountant on occasion. I get advice from my priest on occasion. And it's none of your damn business what advice they give me. Because two of them I'm paying and one of them loves me. When a person or an entity hires someone else to give them advice, it is no one else's business what that is. This bill says it is. It is now, would be, the business of the company about whom they are giving the advice. So why? I paid them. Why should I share that information with you? That's what a proxy advisor is. It's not some big swami sitting in the back sticking it to big corporations. It's a paid advisor. Now, we've heard all terrible things what these advisors do. Who do they work for? Well, they work for pension funds. Mostly pension funds, by the way, that are public pension funds, not all, that have the pension money of teachers, firefighters, police officers, trash collectors, water workers, all across this country. And then there are private pension funds that work for union members, the AFL-CIO, the bricklayers, the SEIU. That's who is doing most of this investing on behalf of little people like me who don't have the knowledge or the time to be able to go through 100 pages of really fine print, really detailed stuff to determine which person I should vote for on a board of a company I don't know much about. That's it.
Gentleman's recognized for an additional 30
who
seconds.
are the worst of the people who hire these people? Well, it turns out the Dominican sisters hire a proxy advisor. Oh, they are put together for the very purpose of ripping the heart out of corporate America. Those Dominican sisters, they are evil investors. Let's not forget the Daughters of Charity. Oh, terrible, terrible people. They're so busy caring for the poorest people in the world that they take time out of that in order to find a way to stick it to the biggest corporate people in the country.
No 30 seconds to the gentleman.
And yet, they use proxy advisors. Let me see. Who wants this bill? Every corporation in America. Why? They don't want you knowing what they're doing. Let's see. Whose side am I on? I think if I have a choice between being on the side of the biggest corporations in this country or being with the Dominican sisters, I'm choosing the Dominican sisters. They are doing God's work. They use and need proxy advisors. Leave them alone. Thank the gentlelady for yielding.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from California reserves. Gentleman from Texas recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 10 seconds just to say that if the gentleman is so busy he can't read a 100-page proxy statement, perhaps he could read a 20-page bill and he would realize that his comments have almost absolutely nothing to do with the bill whatsoever. I'm now pleased to yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy, the sponsor of the legislation and the chairman of the Financial Services Subcommittee on Housing and Insurance.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
I appreciate the gentleman for yielding the chair of Financial Services, Mr. Henscheling. I appreciate his leadership and stewardship on our committee. I'm going to get into the bill in a second, but I can't let the Dominican sister reference go. It's not the Dominican sisters who are using proxy advisors. It's the largest financial investors in the world that are using these advisors, which we're going to get into in a little bit. And if you want to talk about sisters, I'll talk about the little sisters of the poor who have been ravaged by Obamacare because they can't practice their faith, if you want to talk about sisters. We're not going to go there today. And we're in a situation where, my friends, if you listen to the debate, you might go, well, Republicans are asking for a little more regulation in the proxy advisory space, and Democrats miraculously are saying, we don't want any regulation. Well, our concern is that you've consolidated power in 2 companies that control 97% of the industry. And some have made the claim and the allegation that there might be political motivations behind both or at least one of these massive proxy advisory firms, because Glass Lewis is owned by the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, and they might have a political agenda.
Hi guys, if you're joining us here in the newsroom, Molly here. I'm back from our holiday party. I survived it. I came out with my candy cane and a whole lot of food. Guys, you've been watching the House floor. The House has officially joined the Senate in passing the tax reform bill 224 to 201. So the next step is the president's desk. I actually have a live shot right now of some of the GOP members leaving. I believe the Capitol for the White House is what we have. So we're going to bring you a split shot of that and then keep you here on the House floor as they debate some other things here. Hope you guys are having a great Wednesday, and thanks so much for staying on the stream throughout our little break that we had. We talked a little bit about Christmas travel and gifts and whatnot at the top of the show, so if you missed some of that, you can check back in when we end the stream and go back and see our interviews with Tam Lee, who's one of our guests and contributors here, and then we took a little break and went to our party, which I'll show you some pictures from. Check it out from the photo booth. All right, guys, we're gonna go back in to Capitol Hill. This is the House floor. We'll split it with this live shot outside the Capitol for you guys. And let me know if you have any thoughts or questions we can answer on the chat here. I'm glad that some of you are on per usual. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys.
Consolidating great power in these proxy advisory firms. This was pointed out before as well, but again, 2 firms, 97% of the market share, writings, analysis, reports, voting recommendations that affect the fundamentals of corporate governance, mergers, acquisitions, approval of corporate directors, and shareholder proposals. And what's of greatest concern is that these firms are not free of conflicts of interest. For example, in addition to providing recommendations to institutional investors about how to vote, proxy advisory firms may advise companies about corporate governance issues, rate companies on corporate governance, help companies improve those ratings, and advise proponents about how to frame a proposal to get the most votes. They're playing every side of the issue. They're getting every dollar from anybody who cares about the corporate governance space. They play everybody. And if you want access, you pay. I'm going to give you an example in just a little bit of one of the hundreds of letters that I've received on this issue. But before I do that, I think it's important to go, what are we asking for? What's the radical idea that we've brought to the floor today, which, by the way, had 6 Democrats support? Mr. Scott commented about his support as well, and I know he had an issue of the cost that this would have on proxy advisory firms, but the CBO, which I rarely quote, but they did a study on this and say the cost of proxy advisory firms of this bill is minimal, if anything. So I think his concern might be misplaced. But what are we asking to do here? We're asking for accountability. We're asking for transparency, responsiveness, and competition in the proxy advisory space. And by doing that, we'll improve corporate governance, and in the end, we're going to protect investors. Specifically, again, this bipartisan bill will ensure that proxy advisory firms are registered with the SEC. They'll disclose potential conflicts of interest. They'll maintain a code of ethics and make publicly available their methodologies for formulating their proxy recommendations.
Yield the gentleman an additional minute.
Gentleman's recognized.
I don't know what my friends across the aisle have with maintaining a code of ethics or disclosing potential conflicts of interest or instituting an ombudsman to resolve issues that might come up. This is common sense stuff. This is good governance. And I would encourage all of my friends across the aisle to join us. I want to read one part of a letter that I received that I think embodies what's going on in corporate America. This is from, I'm not going to give the name of the company, but it says, upon contacting ISS and seeking an explanation on one of their recommendations, we were told there was a firewall between the ISS recommendation group and the ISS group that deals with corporate matters. Ultimately, we were advised that if we were willing to join ISS, which includes payment of a relatively substantial amount of money, we could have input into the recommendations before they were made. So pay for the input. Meanwhile, during our latest discussions, we were again advised that we could avoid some issues by subscribing.
I yield the gentleman an additional minute.
Thank you. Subscribing to ISS corporate services and thereby having some input before such recommendations were published. Of course, such a subscription would entail big payouts. On the one hand, ISS makes wholly unsupported, unreasonable, and irrational recommendations regarding corporate elections without investigation, regulatory support, or even contact with a victim company. While on the other hand, seeking fees from the victim company for the privilege of influencing.
All right, guys, quick note, what you're watching here in the lower left of your screen is raw, unedited video there of the GOP departing for the White House. Now, President Trump is going to be holding a bill passage type of event at the White House coming up shortly at 3. I believe we'll be streaming that on our Facebook page for sure. I know it's only 2 o'clock Eastern time here now, but you can see they got cameras everywhere. Everyone's kind of putting it together. It's all happening very fast. They're going to go over to the White House, and there will be an official passage of this bill after the House vote. Now, just a reminder, the House just matched the Senate in voting in favor of this bill, 224 to 201. And the president will sign on that coming up here shortly. On the right corner of your screen, we're still just kind of streaming this footage of the House floor. And we'll probably do so just for a little bit longer, and then we'll share some other stories going on, and then we'll close it down on the stream on YouTube today and turn it over to Facebook so you can check out that if you do follow us there. All right, thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
And as to just a couple of companies, or too few companies that are doing the advising for these investors, it was just a week or so ago that my friends on the opposite of the aisle came here representing one company, Berkshire Hathaway, where they were asking this Congress to allow them to charge higher interest rates on the most vulnerable people in our population. With the high interest rates and the terrible foreclosure practices all over this manufactured housing that Berkshire Hathaway is selling to these most vulnerable people in our society. I now yield 3 minutes to the distinguished ranking member of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green.
Gentleman's recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the ranking member for the time. And I'd also like to note this, that the ranking member, the Honorable Maxine Waters, is often the sentinel on watch. She is the person who is there to protect investors. She's there to protect persons who might, but for her absence, be taken advantage of. So I'm honored to speak with her and to stand with her.
All right, y'all. So we're about to get a source switch here on one of our videos, and in response to this tax bill being passed and its ultimate passage and signing over at the White House, which is coming up shortly, Senator Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are taking the stage to chat about what just happened. I'm sure we'll hear some words from them, as we usually do. We hear them speak often about this. There's been a lot of precursor events talking about this bill. Now that it's been voted through, let's hear what they have to say. This is coming up next. So I'm going to switch this feed over. We'll keep you on this raw shot here of the GOP leaving to go to the White House event, which is coming up shortly. So let's take a moment and switch it up. All right, guys, I want to quickly mention, I don't know if you guys saw before we check out Senator Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi speak about the tax reform bill. See right below my face here a picture of Cardinal Bernard Law. Did you guys hear that he has died at the age of 86? He was obviously known as being the disgraced former priest who covered up years of sex abuse and the scandal in the Catholic Church. He was known for becoming sort of the center of that scandal in the early 2000s when he let certain priests that had been involved in the sex abuse scandal be transferred to other churches, and he kept it under wraps. It was very familiar because the movie Spotlight was based on it. If some of you guys caught that movie, I remember seeing it in theaters myself because it interested me quite a bit because I'm from the New England area, and then also, of course, it was a movie about that group of journalists, those investigative journalists. So he was never actually accused of abuse himself, but he was criticized for letting it sort of spread and kind of keeping it under wraps. There's a picture of him right below me there. He has officially died at the age of 86, so sort of a talker today in news as we kind of remember that church abuse scandal back up in Boston. So now we're awaiting Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. They'll be speaking in just a little bit. We'll keep our eyes on the GOP traveling over to the White House before President Trump signs that bill after it has now been voted by the House 224 to 201. All right, y'all. So this is obviously taking a little bit of time. You can see the camera is down there outside the Capitol. And nothing really will happen until everything goes to the White House and the President signs off on this bill. We probably will be streaming that on our Facebook. I don't want to wait around until 3 o'clock and bore you guys with that. So I'm going to throw it to another viral video to kind of close up our stream today. But obviously, Schumer and Pelosi will be speaking about this passage, and then the President will have this whole bill kind of signing event take place at the White House, which we will stream. So check it out on our other social media platforms. You can see, like I said, the camera is down there outside of the Capitol. So we're going to take you somewhere else and kind of close it off. Yes, I did attend our holiday party. It was quite fun. We got some fun pictures here. I'll show you guys up close a little bit. You know, just the normal holiday cheer with the costumes and whatnot. We had a ton of fun, candy canes, tons of food, costume, ugly sweater contests. But no, I have not heard my name called yet, like we said we were possibly going to do. We'll see. We'll see if I win something. But thank you guys so much for staying on the stream today. I want to show you this really fun viral video that's been making the rounds. It's a teacher and a student from the Bronx, and there was a talent show at this Bronx school, and it was on fire when a student and a teacher took to the stage to battle it out for an epic dance-off. We're going to leave you with that shot in just a second here, and we'll close it out with that, and then a little Christmas jingle for you guys. We'll be back again tomorrow. Mike Thomas will be up with a little weather, and then we'll come back into news to see sort of the recap, what else happens as a result of the signage today of today's bill. As we go into the winter solstice tomorrow. So happy winter solstice. We're coming up on finally the shortest day of the year, and then we're going to get rid of that and go into the days that get slightly longer very slowly, but we're excited. So anyways, guys, thanks for hanging out. Aaron, I had a couple sweaters, and I will leave you with this. This is my first one. I showed you my first one earlier, but this is my second one. Hashtag Elfie instead of selfie. I thought it was cute. I got too hot, so I took it off. And then my millennial avocado. Avo, Merry Christmas to all of you guys and happy holidays. We'll see you again tomorrow. Check out this video. We'll leave you with that. All right, take care, guys.
you.